Hey everybody, on today's video I'm going to show you how to automate Bicep deployments to Azure Cloud using GitHub Actions. We will see the benefits of implementing infrastructure as code in this way. We will also set up GitHub to connect to an Azure subscription, and we will see an overview of the Bicep and GitHub Action workflow that we will be using. Finally, we will see this workflow in action with a real-world example. This is the workflow that we will be working on today, but before doing that, let's see the benefits. First, we have declarative. Declarative means that we can store our infrastructure configuration in a GitHub repository so that we can apply versions, that we can have reviews on it. Second, we have consistency. We can store all our deployment templates in a centralized repository and we can apply our organization standards to them. Third, we have self-service. Self-service means that any team can read those templates and create their own infrastructure based on their needs. That it's related to the last item, which is improved productivity. Since now the team doesn't have to wait for another team to create their own infrastructure, they can, for example, set up a POC environment and start doing their testing there. Let's see how this workflow works. So we have our configuration stored in a GitHub repository. When there is a new change, we create a new branch and then we add those changes there. Once we are done with the changes, we create a pull request to the main branch. In this case, we only have one main branch. We don't have multiple environments, but this can be expanded to more environments. Once the pull request is created, two GitHub actions are going to be triggered, one for test and another for plan. The test is going to validate the template and do some linting checks, and the plan is going to preview the changes that are going to be made to the Azure cloud. Finally, we can approve and merge the pull request. Once the changes are in the main branch, two GitHub action workflows are going to be executed. One for testing, similar to the previous one, and another for deploying. The deploying will have an approval gate so that we have to go manually and approve it in order to apply the deployment. Let's start with the demo part. In this, we are going to set up three things. We will need to create a GitHub environment. We will need to set up an Azure identity, configure a federated credentials, and then assign the proper roles to that identity. And then finally, we will need to come here to GitHub Action again and set up some secrets. To create the environment, we go to the settings part of the repository. We search for environments and we create a new one. So we assign a name, in this case production, and I'm going to set up a required reviewer. In this case, the reviewer is going to be myself. And I am going to add another restriction, is that only from the main branch is that we can deploy to this environment. So for that, I'm going to set here selected branch syntax, and then I am going to add the main branch here. That's it. We have our environment set up with two protection rules. Now we are going to the Azure portal and we are going to create a new app registration. The app registration is going to be for the GitHub integration with Azure. So we go here to Microsoft Entra, we search for an app registration and we create a new one. We give it a name, in this case, GH Actions, and we will leave it with the default option. We will hit register and this will take a bit. Once created, what we are going to do is add a federated credential so that we don't have to use any secret or certificate to log into Azure. So we go here into certificates and secrets, we go to federated credentials and we add a new one. For this scenario, we have one by default to GitHub Actions. And here we will put our organization, that in this case is the username that you have. Then you put the repository, in this case Azure IAC. The identity type is from where we are going to be deploying. So remember that we have three types. We have the pull request, we have from the main branch, and we also have the production environment. So we will need to create three federated credentials here. And the environment name is going to be production. Once this is done, we give it a name. It's going to be G Actions environment. And then we hit add. We are going to do the same for the other two. We go here, a new GitHub Actions, put the username, the name of the repository. The identity type in this case is going to be a branch, and we are going to say main. We give it a name, GitHub Actions main, or give it branch, and then we click add. And finally, we add another one for the pull request. So we put our organization, the repository, and then finally the pull request. And for this one, we don't have to add anything else, just the name. So we put actions PR. And that's it. We have the federated credentials in place. Now we need to assign the proper permissions to this identity. For that, I am going to add the contributor to the subscription that I have, but of course this is for educational purposes. In your case, it can be more granular so that it follows the minimal privilege approach. So go to the subscription level and I'm going to access control, go to role assignments. I'm going to add a new role assignment. In this case, it's going to be a privileged administrator role. It's going to be contributor. The member, it's going to be my application. So I'm going to search for that, GH, and there we go. So we have it here, we select it, and then we review and assign, and we assign it. Once the role assignment is completed, we have everything in place. So we will go back to GitHub and we will set up the secrets. Back in GitHub, we are going to set up the GitHub secrets. In this case, we are going to set up the client ID, the subscription ID, and the tenant ID. For that, we will go into settings of the repository. We search for secrets actions. And in this section, we will add the 3 that we want. So let's start with the tenant ID. So the tenant ID, you will find it in the main directory. This is the tenant ID, and I will copy it and paste it here at the secret. Then I'm going to add the same for the client ID. The client ID is for your application. So you go to the app registration that you created and search for GH Actions. This is the application ID, the client ID. You copied it and pasted it here. And finally, the subscription ID. The subscription ID, you can find the subscription ID at the root level, and this is the subscription ID. Copy it and paste it here. Those are the 3 secrets that we will need to log into Azure. Let's review the Bicep templates that we will deploy in, and also the GitHub action workflows so that you understand what is going to be happening in this case. All the main configuration for Bicep start in the main.bicep, and this one we are creating 3 modules. We are setting up a storage account, a key vault, and also an Azure Data Factory instance. And we are creating a resource group. We are receiving these parameters, and these parameters are passed to the template from the GitHub Action workflow. So if we go into the modules, we can see, for example, the Azure Data Factory. It's creating Data Factory instance, and we are creating also the link services in this case, and we are adding a key vault policy so that the Azure Data Factory identity has access to the secrets and the key vault. We are also creating the key vault instance here with some access policies by default for my user and the pipeline ID. And finally, we have the storage account. The storage account has the storage account name and a container that is also passed to the pipeline parameters. Let's see how the GitHub action workflows work. The first thing that we find are the triggers. We have 2 triggers, one when there is a push to the main branch and another when there is a pull request to the main branch. Next, we will find the environment variables that we will pass to the Bicep templates as parameters. Usually it is a better practice to put them out so that we can change it based on the environment, but for educational purpose, it works. The next, we will have the permission section here. That this is because every time we execute a GitHub Actions workflow, GitHub is going to issue a new token, and the permission for that token will depend on this definition. We have one job for this workflow, and it is specifying what is going to be the agent, in this case Ubuntu latest. We are doing a checkout, which means it is going to download the repository to the agent, and we are going to do the login to Azure with the secrets that we created previously. It is going to use Azure client ID, tenant ID, and subscription ID, and this is done using the Azure command line utility. Next, we have the Bicep linting, and for this one we are just building the main file and checking that the building it's working. And finally, we have the validation. We do the validation at the subscription level with the AIC deployment sub-validate command. Let's see the definition for the other workflow. This part is similar. We specify the triggers similar to the permissions, and the environment variables is the same thing. But here we specify 2 jobs. One that is going to execute the preview of the changes, which is this called Bicep what if, and the other one that is called Bicep deploy, which is going to apply the changes to Azure. The first one is same. We are going to use Ubuntu doing the checkout and doing the login, and here we are going to also do a validation and a linting. So that's why we have the same task in this one. This is the different part, and it's here is when we run the what if command, which basically help us to preview what are going to be the changes if this template is applied into Azure. And finally, we have 3 tasks, which it's going to help us to put the preview of the changes into the description of the pull request. We will see this in action in a moment. For the Bicep deploy job, we have again the same 2 tasks to specify the checkout and the login. And here there is 2 different things. That is, we have a condition to execute this job only when we run from the main branch, and that the environment is going to be production. Remember that we have a protection rule in the production environment, so we have to approve that first if we want this job to be executed. And finally, we specify the deployment of the templates. And I didn't say this before, but if you see here, this is how we are overriding the parameters that we define in the Bicep template. So we have the resource group name, the location, and so on, and we are reading these values from the environment variables that we defined above. Let's see all this in action. I'm going to update the resource group name, and for this I am going to create another branch called update rg name. I'm going to add the changes here in our workflows, because remember that here in the environment variables is where we pass the parameters to the Bicep templates. So I'm going to add a 1 at the end for this one, and I'm going to do the same for the other environment here. So I'm going to do this, and that's how we completed the changes. I'm going to commit these changes, update rg name, and I am going to push the changes to GitHub. Now when we go to GitHub, we will see a new branch, and I'm going to create the pull request. I am not going to add anything else. Once we create the pull request, remember that there are going to be 2 GitHub Actions workflows that will be triggered. Let's do that. We can see the changes that I add here, just changing the rg name and go back. There we go. We can see that now both workflows are executed, and if we go into the details for each, we can see the same steps that we saw in the YAML definition. We have the checkout, we have the login, then we have the Bicep linting, validate, and then there is finally some cleanup jobs. For the what if, it's similar, just that for this case, since we don't run it from the main branch, we are not going to see the deploy job. We are only seeing the what if job. So let's wait for this to finish, and then we are going to see how the preview plan is going to be added into the PR description. Okay, now both workflows completed with success. And if you see this one, there is an output. This is where we can preview the changes that are going to be added if we apply this template. Basically, those are going to be added because I haven't created this before, so all of them will be created. Now I am going to merge the pull request and confirm the merge. And since the main branch was updated, if we go to the action section, we will see again 2 workflows running. We will focus on the what if, because now we will see that we have 2 jobs, the same as the previous one, but now we have the Bicep deploy. In a moment, once the Bicep completes, we will have an approval gate, because remember that we added a protection rule to the environment. The Bicep what if job was completed, and now we will see that we have the approval here. So I can check and I can approve it because I added myself as an approver. I'm going to approve and deploy it. This is the one that is going to apply the templates that we specify in the code. The deployment job finished, so we can see that it was successful. And to confirm this, we can go to the Azure portal, and here there is the resource group that I created, and these are the 3 resources that we specify. It is created in the keyboard, the storage account, and Azure Data Factory. And that's how we finish our demo. That's everything. Now you have a GitHub Action workflow working where you can deploy any Bicep template. You don't have to worry about this setup anymore. You just need to worry about updating your infrastructure, and it will be deployed automatically. Thank you for watching. I hope you find this useful, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.